Hello and welcome to days 79 to 85 for my no cards build log for Stronghold Kingdoms. Now in the last week not a whole lot has happened, and I know I say this every episode, but that is really the nature of the game. The progress continues to slow all the time. So there isn't a whole lot to cover, and I'll do it right away. Going into research. For military, I invested additional points into Sallyforth. Now, when you saw me last week, I believe I had level 5 completed. I've since maxed it out, which took an additional 5 research points. Then moving down here to the Catapult. I know I mentioned researching this before. I've maxed it out, so now I can really utilize catapults to their full potential. And that's going to tie into another thing I'm going to demonstrate today, because since in times past I didn't have my catapults maxed in terms of firing rate, I often altered my very own formations for removing AI castles, and so they're different from the ones that I've often used in tutorials. I wasn't able to make use of those. So I'm going to show you some of the ones that I did use instead of the very formal ones that I've created. Okay, lastly, it's in Education tab of the research tree. I put an additional 2 points into Mathematics to max that out. So now my research times have been fully reduced by 50%, and it's still taking me about 12 hours each research. So going quickly over to quests, I only completed one quest in the past week, and that was Rat Hunt 2. I really got stuck on this bandit quest because I didn't want to kill bandits outside of my honor circle. So you can consider it a wasted opportunity, because if I'd really invested myself in the game, I could have completed that quest easily, and probably Supreme General as well. Now, the reason I say I could have completed Supreme General is because I took my 6th village. Now, this is the first time playing this world that I've actually held 6 villages. And the village I took is right here in my parish of Bucks. Now, there is a reason why this parish was chosen, this village was chosen by me. And it's because this player right here with the sword above his village believed it was just fine to fair vote me out of my parish repeatedly, and he would do it time after time. Well, that's simply not going to stand in my book. If you do not understand the informal rules of the game when it comes to fair voting in parishes, you are open game. So I flagged him as an enemy, and I took one of his villages. Now, the village itself, it doesn't have a castle. It is decently built, I guess. I would convert this once again, but for the time being, it's just fine. It doesn't have no cathedral, no faith point generating buildings. It has all the food types, which I can't use. And speaking of custom built villages, now as you can see in the last episode, I had just reset this village right here. A week later, it is fully built, and that is without using a premium token. If I had used a premium token, I probably could have shaved a couple of extra days off of it, because I'd be able to actually build it while I'm off doing other things or sleeping at night. But in this case, yeah, it basically took me a week of regular activity to build it up by hand to the top tier village. And that is solely because I fully maxed out architecture in the education tree. As you may recall, last week I covered that. Invested a total of 10 points in it, which reduced village building by 200%. So otherwise, building this top tier village would probably take 2.5 to 3 weeks if you don't have any research invested in architecture. And if you're building it manually like I did, you didn't have a premium token in play. So if anyone's interested, this is what it looks like currently. I have more breweries down than I'd like, because once again, this parish that this village is in doesn't have a brewer's guild, and my steward is not interested in placing one, obviously. And I should focus on that, but In other words, to keep my ale rations at ×4, I almost have to do that. I'm only making 10,000 a day, and my peasants are already drinking 7,000. I only have, well, if you rounded it up, I have 80 peasants in here. Now, as you can see, my armory is full once again, and this is becoming a problem for me as I increase the productivity of my villages. So what I'm doing, I'm going to start researching next is increasing my armory capacity, and then I'll probably focus on increasing the stockpile capacity. When it comes to capacities, or I don't know how you want to put it, it's like stockpiles, just stockpiles in general. The ones you really want to focus on are the stockpile capacity, because it allows you to build a lot more advanced buildings. Like, I'm going to eventually run out of space to store the wood I need to build future Fletcher's Guild, Fletcher's workshops, for example. So that's an important one to have. Granary capacity, not so much, because if you keep your food rations under control, there's really no reason that you need to store like 100,000 food. It just doesn't make sense. Hall capacity can be useful if you're doing a banqueting approach. In this case, I am not doing a banqueting approach, so I'm not going to do that. Inn capacity is pretty much the same thing as granary capacity. Since it's a resource that's continually being used by your villagers, there really isn't any need to store it more than maybe 10,000. It definitely, I will be saving granary capacity and inn capacity for later, if not last, researches for sure. Housing capacity is important. Once I get more food types and I can build up bigger populations within my villages, this is going to be a very important research to max out, and a lot of players have maxed this research out by this point in the game. So that is something you want to keep in mind. I'm not sure. I most likely will research some more farming technology before I do housing capacity, but that sort of gives you an outline of what the future holds, I hope, anyway. So in addition to rebuilding that village fully, I've converted my plains village into a highland, and I've started building that one as well. You can see it's pretty much the same design. I like to keep my stockpile over here with the wood and the stone. Once you get a little further in the game, I like to move it maybe right here in the middle, so that way iron production is pretty decent too, but usually you have enough iron over here. If you place enough iron mines, the wood production is probably more important, at least for building stuff, but the iron is more important if you want to sell. So it depends what you're trying to do. Also, having it over here means it's closer to the pitch rigs, which means you're going to be getting more pitch. Like I said, having the stockpile in this area of the village is more beneficial if you're looking for, more finance, more production of resources that you can sell. And once again, I did a very passive honor thing here, which is rather interesting because I've noticed that most of the honor I'm getting now, I'd say at least 3/4 of it. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration. I haven't actually calculated this, but I'm getting a lot of honor from attacking and killing bandit camps, wolf lairs, and the AI castles. Not to mention, whenever the enemy AI attacks me, that's usually a good 20,000 honor for each one. Now, unfortunately, because I had to attack and remove this little troublemaker in my parish, I didn't actually upgrade to Marquis. I could have upgraded, but I spent the honor to capture that guy instead. So I was so close to hitting Marquis this week, and a couple 100,000 more than I would have. So I'm very, very close to reaching Marquis, and definitely will be by this time next week. Okay, so I think that covers all the regular stuff. I was going to demonstrate some of the AI attacks that I use on AI castles and wolf lairs on a regular day-to-day basis. Stuff that, formations are nice, especially for big AI castles, but when it comes to the small AI castles, the wolf lairs, the bandit camps, I tend to make do with what I have, and I really don't have the standard troop setup that I need for most of my formations, and it's more of a hassle at this point in the game to actually set that up in every village. So I sort of ad-lib all my attacks. But anyway, for example, here is a wolf lair. Now this is only 40 wolves in it. But as you can see now, this is a standard attack formation coming from the back. Now the reason that I'll do from the back a lot of the time is because if you come from the front, there tend to be more wolves there, and also if you come from the back, you're milking this wolf lair for more honor, because most likely they'll have to kill more wolves, since any wolves that are in front of the keep entrance, let's call that, are going to have to be called out and shot by the archers before the pikemen can actually get in. So I like coming from the back, especially if you're looking for honor. And in my case, why not? The more honor, the better. Now, that attack that I showed you there only works up to, I'd say, 100 wolves. If you've got more than 100 wolves in a wolf lair, I definitely try a bigger approach to it, because it's not going to work. So here we have the bandit camp stuff, and this changes from day to day, but generally I send in pikemen on 2 sides, and I like to do catapults above and below, I believe, on the 2 sides. That's pretty much the standard I covered in a different video of mine discussing bandit camp strategies and how you should set up an army for blind attacking them. In my case, I've been blind attacking because I use my vassals to do it, and I haven't been able to scout, but at the same time my vassals don't have the right troops to do my blind attack setup, and so I've just been throwing everything in the vassal at them. So like I said, it varies from time to time. Let's see if I can find the snake castle. Okay, here we go with the snake castle. Now you'll notice I actually managed to use catapults in this one. Sometimes I don't, in which case the pikemen will simply have to break through these last 2 stone walls right here at the very rear of the castle. That is the weakest area of this castle, is right here in the back, where there are only 2 layers of stone wall. The other areas all have 3 layers of wall around them, which means that if you're going to focus on an area to whittle away at, it's definitely the rear. So this is pretty much the standard setup that I used, especially early on when I didn't even have access to catapults. I was still able to net a good few of these castles. And it should be noted that the snake castle can be removed without losing any troops, providing you use captains on hold and just nuke the castle with catapults. But that is definitely a late game strategy, and I hope to be covering it in an upcoming video, I guess you could say. So that covers, see, that was 20,000 right there for that AI castle. Here I am attacking the pig. Now this castle is worth 60,000, which is a very decent amount of honor. And this is one of the newer castles. I've never seen this pig castle design before this world. And as you can see, 60,000 honor for removing this castle is pretty decent. Now what I did here is I used a few catapults in the front to smash open the path to the front of the keep. I got the archers all around. I basically only used archers in this one. I would have used pikemen, but I don't think I had any in my village at the time. So once again, there was another ad-libbed attack that was just thrown together in the spur of the moment. So what you're doing here is you're smashing a hole in the front. Now I wouldn't recommend attacking this castle without catapults, because it's going to take quite a while to actually remove 4 layers of walls with just pikemen. And you're going to have that keep firing at you, and it's a fairly advanced keep, so. But it's worth 60,000, even that small pig castle. Okay, let's check out one of the rat castles that I did. Now this is a smaller one, but it's the design that I use for most of them. And I basically just took little bouts of 9 archers and placed them maybe 6 around the perimeter, 6 on each side. Used the pikemen to approach from this side over here, because the bigger rat castle. The bigger rat castle has some peasants there, so having pikemen to counter them will protect my archers, and then you have the massier pikemen going right for the front of the keep. And that's pretty standard. I don't actually use a formation to remove any rat castles, because it can vary quite a bit depending upon what troops you have available, it seems like. Okay, let's try this pig castle. Now this one's 80,000, or nearly 80,000 honor that I got for it. This one's definitely bigger. As you can see, this is the moat castle, and while it is definitely not the biggest AI castle for the pig, it definitely is going to take a little bit more than average. This is definitely a castle you're not going to be attacking without catapults, because you got how many tiles of moat? Maybe 3-4 tiles of moat there to go through, plus 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of wall. It's just, you're not going to do it. You're going to incur very heavy losses attacking this castle without catapults. So I definitely recommend catapults. I would discourage you from attacking this castle if you don't have any. So this is going to take a while to knock through it, but you eventually get the idea. And it was worth 80,000, so that's good for some honor. Like I said, that's more honor than I'd probably make. Well, okay. If my villages now are averaging about 35,000 each per day, that's a significant amount of honor. So, like I said, I'm all in favor of passive honor because I'm a very laid-back style player. So, I think that pretty much covers everything for this week. Not a whole lot. It wasn't very eventful, but I finished building one village to the highest tier. I'll continue building that. I got started on a second, and I'm in the process of tearing down this third one, and I'm going to rebuild this one as a highland as well, because I'm trying to get rid of all of my banqueting villages. They really aren't useful for me, and they're not really... I'm not going to be able to produce as much honor as I should be if I continue to use them. So, I believe I've covered that multiple times already, so if you've watched any of the previous videos, you're probably bored to death of me repeating this stuff. So, I won't keep you any longer. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.
Stronghold Kingdoms. The battle has just begun.